Welcome back to the Fantasy Academy for Week 7 start-sit suggestions. Players that you're going to be wanting to put into your fantasy rosters for Week 7, and players you're definitely going to want to be putting on your bench for the week. And you know, we don't like to go through the obvious players that you're going to play, the Patrick Mahomes, the Ezekiel Elliott's. We want to go through more of those fringe players where, you know, given their matchup, maybe you put them in, maybe you don't. So with that said, go ahead and give the Fantasy Academy a subscribe below. It helps a lot. And we want to be in discussion with each of you every week. We want to know who you're putting in your lineup, who you're not. And so go ahead and drop a comment as well. Let us know what you're thinking. But let's go ahead and get right into it. Starting off with quarterbacks that you're going to be putting into your lineup in Week 7, we've got Justin Herbert going against Jacksonville, who is 25th against, their defense is 25th against quarterbacks so far this season. Justin Herbert has been balling out. Looks like he's going to be a superstar in this league for a long time to come. I'm an Oregon fan, so, you know, I'm a little bit biased, but he's looked great, even though he's 0-4 for the Chargers so far. He has looked like a superstar. He's got great arm talent. And, he's going up against a weak defense in Week 7, so get him into your lineup. I picked him up in one of my fantasy leagues. He's my number one quarterback now, and I hope he's got a bright future. So, but get him into your lineup. And then we've got Gardner Minshew going up against the LA Chargers, Justin Herbert's team. The Chargers are surprisingly, they've given up the ranked 30th for giving away the most points to fantasy quarterbacks, and Gardner Minshew is definitely going to take advantage of that. He's put up at least 20 points in every single game this season except for one against Miami. I know that because I also have Gardner Minshew in one of my leagues, and he's been solid other than that one game. He's been my most consistent quarterback, and he's a top 15 guy. So get him into your lineups going against the Chargers. Then we've got Teddy Bridgewater, who had he didn't have a great last game, but he is going against New Orleans defense, who's 29th. They've given up the 29th most fantasy points. And the Carolina's been solid this season, and it's a fun matchup to watch. So Bridgewater could have a great game for fantasy owners, so get him into your lineup. And then we've got Joe Burrow going against the Browns, who have given up the 24th, who are ranked 24th for giving up the most fantasy points. So Joe Burrow, like Justin Herbert, looks like a future superstar in this league. We've got some great rookie quarterbacks this year. Tua is going to be starting this upcoming week as well. I wouldn't say put him into your lineup yet, but definitely get Justin Herbert in there, get Joe Burrow in there, and we'll see what Tua can do as well. As for quarterbacks you're going to be sitting in Week 7, go ahead, keep Drew Lock on your bench. He looked abysmal in his last game. I think he put up like 2 or 3 points. I have him as my bench quarterback right now in one of my dynasty leagues, and I really believe that he has potential to break out, but he just hasn't looked great. Obviously, he was sitting out for about 3 games, but just hasn't really shown the star potential that I think he has, and a lot of people think he does have. But keep him on your bench for now, going up against Kansas City, who's been a solid defense against the pass. And then Sam Darnold, do I really have to say much more? He's the Jets quarterback. Looks like the Jets are tanking at this point, and so they're going up against Buffalo, who hasn't been great against the pass, but keep him out of your lineup anyway, unless you don't have anyone better to throw in than Sam Darnold. Kind of a last resort, but keep him on your bench if you can. And then we've got Daniel Jones going up against Philadelphia. Philadelphia's defense has been solid. They're they're ranked 12th for giving away the most fantasy points. And Daniel Jones just hasn't looked great this season. Sterling Shepard, I don't believe will be back yet. So they've got Darius Slayton, who also had an injury in the last game. He may or may not be back. So we're looking at Golden Tate, Evan Engram. But I say just steer clear, keep Daniel Jones out of your lineup. And those are the quarterbacks I've got for you in Week 7 of the NFL. Let's get into running backs. First off, we've got DeAndre Swift going up against Atlanta, who ranks 19th, giving away the most fantasy points to running backs. So get DeAndre Swift in your lineup. It looks like he might be kind of taking over that role for Adrian Peterson. They're giving him a little more workload, and he's been great with targets as well. So get him into your lineup. against a really bad defense. And then Antonio Gibson for the Redskins going up against Dallas, which we've seen that Dallas's defense is atrocious. So Gibson should be a strong play. I've actually got Washington winning that game. I just think their defense is way better than Dallas, and their offense will probably be on par. So then we've got Devin Singletary going up against the Jets. Singletary, he's had a few strong games this season, but going against the Jets defense, they're ranked 28th for giving up the most fantasy points to running backs. So get Singletary in there. I don't think Zach Moss will be back stealing too many carries or targets yet, so should be a strong week to play Singletary. And then we've got Justin Jackson going up against Jacksonville, ranked 24th for giving up the most fantasy points to running backs. He looks like the guy rather than Joshua Kelly right now. When Austin Eckler comes back, it'll be a different story, but it looks like Justin Jackson's backfield for the time being, and he's going against a weak defense, so get him into your lineup if you don't have anyone better. And then we've got Ronald Jones going up against the Las Vegas Raiders. Yes, the Las Vegas Raiders. It's still weird saying that, but they have been horrible against the run this season. They're ranked 29th for giving up the most fantasy points to running backs, and Ronald Jones has looked great, especially in the absence of Leonard Fournette, so get him into your lineup in Week 7. You won't regret that. As far as running backs, you should be sitting Le'Veon Bell. I don't care that he's with the Chiefs now. It's his first week. He hasn't ran their system. He doesn't know it fully yet. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is coming off a huge Week 6, 160-some yards. Should have had 2 touchdowns maybe. I'm a little mad because I have him in 2 of my leagues, so I needed those touchdowns. But sit Le'Veon Bell, his first week with the Kansas City Chiefs. They're also going up against Denver, who's the best team against the run so far this season. And then I've got Damian Harris going up against San Francisco, another really solid defense against the run. And Patriots backfield, we just don't know who's going to get the rock. So keep Damian Harris out of your lineup. Then, surprisingly, I've got Kenyon Drake. I'm saying keep him out of your lineup right now because Kenyon Drake had a really solid Week 6. This could be Kenyon Drake or Chase Edmonds. You decide which one you want to keep out or take the bet on. But other than, that breakout 60-yard run last week, Kenyon Drake really hasn't done all that much this season. And Chase Edmonds didn't do great last game. And they're going against Seattle, who has been solid against the run this season, not against the pass. But I might actually say keep Chase Edmonds out of your lineup, play Kenyon Drake. I'm switching my notes up right now. So keep Chase Edmonds out of your lineup. Kenyon Drake is a if you have to play him, go ahead. But if you've got a better matchup with a flex spot, I might fill it with a different flex player with a better matchup. And then we've got Frank Gore going against Buffalo. Buffalo's got a mediocre defense against the run, but Frank Gore plays for the Jets, and they're not really going to be scoring any points. And he's old. I don't know how many yards he can run for. So that's really disrespectful to Frank Gore. I'm sorry, Gore, if you're watching this. I respect you. But keep him out of your lineup for Week 7. And now for wide receivers, make sure to get T. Higgins in your lineup in Week 7. They're going up against Cleveland, who's ranked 30th for giving up the most fantasy points against receivers. Then we've got Darius Slayton going against Philadelphia. Unless he's injured, don't play Darius Slayton. Unless he is injured, play Darius Slayton. Let me correct that. Sorry about that. And Christian Kirk, I just want to point out that I had Christian Kirk on here before he had a huge breakout game last week. I had my notes already ready, and so I called the Christian Kirk breakout. I mean, I called it a week later, but I knew he would break out at some point. He's very talented. He only had 2 catches, but he had the 80-yard touchdown catch in Week 6. So play him again in Week 7, going up against Seattle, who is they've given up the most fantasy points to receivers. So get Christian Kirk in your lineup again. And then Marvin Jones going up against Atlanta, ranked 27th, giving up the most fantasy points to receivers. And then Mike Williams going up against Jacksonville, ranked 24th. Mike Williams had a really strong Week 6. His connection with Justin Herbert is really coming along, so look for him to have a strong Week 7. And as far as receivers that you're going to want to be sitting, This can be probably one of my most controversial calls yet, but I'm saying sit Allen Robinson in week 7. He's going up against the LA Rams, which, if you know me, you know I love Jalen Ramsey. You know Jalen Ramsey's probably going to shut down Allen Robinson. I thought about putting Anthony Miller here instead of Allen Robinson, but Jalen Ramsey's not going to be covering Anthony Miller. He's going to be covering Allen Robinson. And so I went ahead and I'm saying sit Allen Robinson going against the Rams and Jalen Ramsey. So then we've got Michael Gallup going against Washington, who's third best against receivers. And CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper, those seem like the top 2 guys in Dallas right now. And Andy Dalton doesn't really have the firepower to get it to, the 5 or 6 different guys like Dak did. So I say sit Michael Gallup going against a solid Washington defense. And then we've got Traquan Smith. I've told you to play him in previous weeks, mainly because Michael Thomas is out, but guess what? Michael Thomas is back now. So get Traquan Smith in your lineups, going against a really good Carolina defense against receivers in week 7. And then Jerry Jeudy going against Kansas City. Like I said, Drew Lock has looked terrible so far. They're going to be keying on Jerry Jeudy, so I'm thinking some of their other receivers, Tim Patrick, might have a good game. Their rookie receiver, Akwugbamba, whatever his last name is, he might have a solid game. KJ Hamler, if he's healthy. But I think they're going to be keying on Jeudy, and not sure he's going to have a great game against Kansas City. And last but not least, man, I've got some big names on this list for receivers. There's just so many good receivers that some of them have to have a bad week. So last and least, Julian Edelman going up against San Francisco. Cam just hasn't looked good since their first few games of the season. And Edelman really doesn't put up many fantasy points unless he has like 10 to 14 targets. So I say sit Julian Edelman in week 7. You won't regret it. And let's move on to tight ends. All right, everybody, we made it. Thank you for sticking with me through this. We are to tight ends that you're going to be starting and sitting in week 7. And let's start off with who you're starting, given the green light. TJ Hawkinson going against Atlanta. We've talked about Atlanta's pass defense. It's atrocious. So start TJ Hawkinson. He's got a really good rapport with Matt Stafford. He's a very talented tight end. So get him into your lineups. He's going to have a huge week 7. Then we've got Dallas Goedert. As long as he is healthy and coming back, Zach Ertz is out with injury. The next guy they have is Richard Rodgers behind Goddard, if Goddard is back. If Goddard is back, play him. If he's not back, Richard Rodgers could actually be a solid pickup. And I believe Jeff from the Fantasy Academy has that in his video as well. So, and then we've got Logan Thomas going against Dallas. Atrocious pass defense. And Logan Thomas has been solid this week. Had a touchdown in week 6. Get him into your lineups. Dalton Schultz going against Washington. One of the worst pass defenses. One of the best rush defenses in the league, though. Dalton Schultz should be a solid play against Washington. And then Drew Sample going up against Cleveland, ranked 25th, giving up the most points to fantasy tight ends. Sample has been solid ever since Uzoma went down for Cincinnati. So Joe Burrow's been hitting him quite a bit. Get him into your lineup in week 7. And then guys you're going to be sit, I've only got 3. Darren Fells going against Green Bay. Green Bay has been great against tight ends this year. So sit Darren Fells. Then we've got Ryan Izzo, he's the Patriots guy. He's New England's guy at tight end until Devin Asiasi can take over the rookie. But Ryan Izzo has done nothing. And Cam Newton's not getting the ball. The one play I did see him catch the ball last week, he fumbled it. So keep Ryan Izzo. Like, if you have Ryan Izzo in your lineup, I'm sorry. He's actually been being passed around in our dynasty group because like no one wants him. He's just kind of like an orphan and always being picked up and passed around. A foster kid, I should say. He's a foster player. So keep Ryan Izzo out of your lineup, going against a solid San Francisco defense. And then Greg Olsen going against Arizona. Just hasn't really produced much this season. Arizona's been good against the tight end, so Greg Olsen is the last player that I'm going to tell you to keep out of your lineups for this week. But thank you all for listening so much for week 7. Be sure to subscribe to the Fantasy Academy below and comment. Let me know what do you disagree with me on? Who are you definitely playing this week? Who are you definitely sitting this week? Let me know, and I will be sure to be back with you week 8 of the NFL for Start Sit with the Fantasy Academy. I will see you all then.